Scary story number 10, title, Wendigo. Story begins. I was 12 years old visiting my aunt, uncle, and cousin who lived in a house in the forest in eastern Canada. The house was 2 stories tall and made of dark wood. Looked kind of old, but still maintained. It had these big windows on the bottom floor that reflected the trees outside, but the upstairs windows were smaller and creepy, like little eyes staring out at the woods. The roof was steep. Makes sense with all the snow they get out there. And the shingles were all shiny with frost as well. Now you're probably wondering why they live out there, away from everyone. Well, it's because of our family. We're Algonquin, Native American, and my aunt and uncle really care about staying connected to our roots. Living in the forest helps them do that, you know? They say it's about being close to the land, to nature, into the stories that people have passed down for generations. Anyway, my aunt's super friendly. She was already outside on the porch when we got there, waving at us like she's been waiting all day. My uncle, on the other hand, is the quiet type. He came around the corner carrying a bunch of firewood. Didn't say much except something about the snow coming early. He's the kind of guy who makes you feel like there's a whole lot he's not telling you. Then there's my cousin, Joseph. He was already outside too, throwing rocks at the tree like he was bored out of his mind. As soon as he saw me, he lit up and jogged over. "It's about time you showed up," he said. "Joseph and I may be cousins, but we treat each other like we were brothers." So visiting him made the trip less boring for me. We played in the woods, mostly just walking around or playing games that we made up to entertain ourselves, but this time, Joseph had something to show me. It wasn't that far from where the house was when we got to what Joseph wanted to show me. When we got there, I saw a pile of bones that had some flesh that was covered in blood. The smell hit me next, thick and sour, like something had been rotting in the sun. At our age, we were curious about everything, so our curiosity made us wonder what kind of animal these bones were. Most of them were from a deer, except a few of them looked like they belonged to a human. There was a skull with some skin and hair on it, a fleshy hand, and a bloody femur. What creature is capable of doing this? Joseph asked. I couldn't answer him. I didn't want to. The truth was, I was asking myself the same thing. We looked around more in the forest and found claw marks on a tree. The claw marks were deep and jagged, like something had dragged its nails down the trunk in a fit of rage. Dark, dried blood clung to the groves, staining the bark. These claw marks weren't from some bear. They had to be from something that wasn't animal or human. As we turned to leave, a howl that sounded like a deer growling stopped me in my tracks. "Did you hear that?" I asked. Joseph nodded as he scanned through the trees. When we went back to the house, it was close to dinner time, but before we did, I smelled something again. I can only describe the smell as fresh roadkill mixed with a decomposing corpse. I turned around to where I think the smell was coming from. I saw a tall figure with a thin build, so thin that it looked like a stick figure standing between the trees. "What are you looking at?" Joseph asked as I pointed to him where I was looking. When he turned around to look, the thing disappeared. We walked into the house and dinner was ready just in time. "What were you boys doing out there?" my uncle asked. "We were exploring," Joseph replied. My uncle stared at the both of us, not looking convinced, but didn't press hard on what we were actually doing. "Well, as long as you were being careful, but don't stay out so late next time. There's a danger in these woods," my uncle said. I asked him what the danger would be, and he said it could be a Wendigo. "What is a Wendigo?" I asked. A Wendigo is a spirit that was once human that gave into their intense hunger and resorted to cannibalism, to turn them into the monster they are now, my uncle replied. To add this, my uncle also believes that someone of our bloodline may be a Wendigo since they originated from our tribe here in eastern Canada. Meanwhile, everyone went to bed until I was woken up by my cousin, telling me to get up. "Let's find where that thing might be tonight," Joseph said. Even though I feared this creature, I still wanted to get a closer look at him this time. I put my jacket, boots, and hat on with a flashlight ready to go. We went looking for the Wendigo and didn't find anything until we heard the howling deer noise that growled again. But this time, It was closer. I saw the creature coming out from the trees without him noticing us yet. Now that I was closer to him, I could see him more clearly now. The beast had a deer skull with antlers. He was about 8 feet tall with brown fur, flesh that looked like it was rotting. His skeleton was showing from his ribcage, long arms that went down to his shins, claws that were 4 inches long, and had no muscle or fat on him either. I was frozen. I couldn't move, but Joseph made a crunchy noise which alarmed the monster to turn to us. Once he saw us, he let out a blood-chilling scream and charged at us while running on all fours in a predatory way. Joseph and I ran, but the Wendigo was too fast, so we tore into Joseph as he screamed, "Run!" I couldn't leave him, but I didn't know what to do. The thing was 10 times stronger than me. So, for me to survive, I had to let Joseph sacrifice himself for me so I could escape. When I got back home, my uncle asked, "Where is Joseph?" "The Wendigo got him," I said as I was crying, feeling guilty for leaving him out to die. The whole family cried while my uncle stayed out on the porch with his rifle waiting for the beast to come, but it never happened. Later that night, when I went to bed, I heard a knock on my window, and I saw a shadowy figure that looked smaller and childlike, but thin with long fingers and a hollow face. I sat up from my bed, looked at him, and whispered, "Joseph?" There was no response. Then he left my sight. Story ends.